Hello, this is Anthony with the Headline Analysis Tool, or HAT, and I'm going to give you a brief introduction on how I use this tool to look at the headlines. This tool is available at headlines.cascadiantech.com, and it's publicly available to anyone who wants to go to that address. When you look at the Headline Analysis Tool, you'll notice that at the top it has a link to our sources page, which if you look at it, it will show you all 83 sources, which is what we currently have, that we're currently gathering headlines from, as well as a link to our headlines page, which will bring you to all 88,000 headlines that we've collected over the last few weeks. But I'm going to start at the home page, which is where you'll arrive if you go to headlines.cascadiantech.com. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a couple of things. I'm going to first look at this Ngram analysis. And now what this is doing is looking at all of the headlines for today, of which it has found 3,300 headlines. And it's looked through all of these headlines, and it's looked for common word sets, so sets of between 2 and 5 words, although it seems like 2 to 3 words tends to pop up in the most popular list, but sets of these words that are found throughout all of the headline news sources. And this kind of gives me an overview of what's happening today in the news. This is what all of the news media aggregated and lumped into one ball of news wants me to look at. And so most popular is the Istanbul nightclub, and apparently there was an attack there hours ago. This tends to indicate that there's an issue. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to have to look into these scrapers because they are collecting the hours ago tag on them, so I'm going to have to get rid of that. Good thing to know. ISIS claims is another one. Let's see here. I think they're claiming responsibility for the attack, and that's indeed what they're doing. Year's Eve, and I bet this is again about the Istanbul attack. Let's see here. We got a bunch of stuff that happened on New Year's Eve. So we're getting a lot of different things, but New Year's Eve, there seems to be a bunch of stuff that happened on New Year's Eve. So that's interesting. I don't know quite where to go with that one, but of course you're getting the Turkey and the Istanbul attack again, and Mariah Carey bungling her show in New Year's Eve, which is very important to all of us, I'm sure. Let's see here. Claims responsibility is probably again about ISIS claiming responsibility for the New Year's nightclub attack in Istanbul again. There's a prison riot one, and this is kind of interesting. I saw this earlier today when I looked at it. It's about a Brazil prison riot. Some news sources are reporting it as a massacre gang war. Others are reporting hundreds escape in Brazil prison riot, so that's a little different than a gang war. Many beheaded, according to Al Jazeera, in a grisly Brazil prison riot. This is kind of an interesting one. You can kind of get a sense of all of the different news sources and how they're taking it and how they're spinning it or using different words to describe it. And this is kind of what this tool is about, is a tool to look at a whole bunch of different news sources about the same topic, and you'll notice that this whole search result that I've gone into is mostly about this one prison riot. And all of these different headlines are saying essentially that 60 inmates were killed in this, or dead. 60 people were dead in it, but they all have a different kind of take on it. Google News is an aggregator, so it's probably getting their headline from the Washington Post, in fact. So they're probably just amplifying the Washington Post's take on the prison riot. This is another Google News one, so this is another aggregated headline. Aggregated meaning that they're pulling their news from another news source and then reposting it on the Google News page. They're considering this an important news item, and so they're putting it up there and amplifying the message of this. Well, anyways, it's just interesting how that's being played out. So this is the n-gram analysis, and you can see that it gives the last 4 days, today, yesterday, 2 days ago, and 3 days ago, n-grams. And this is January 2nd, 2017, right there. So that's the results for that analysis. And now the other tool, analysis, that this tool gives us is a lexicological analysis. And basically it takes a headline and it breaks it down into nouns, verbs, pronouns, numbers, adjectives, and adverbs. So we can see that Trump, once again, is in the lead in the nouns race. He is usually in the lead. New Year's or year was more popular than Trump yesterday and the day before. And indeed, over Christmas and Christmas Eve, Trump lost out to Christmas and Christmas Eve in the news headlines being the most prominent noun. But once the holiday is over, Trump goes back to being the most popular noun in the news. Other than that, we got Istanbul. Obama's down there in number 6. What's going on with Chicago? It's kind of interesting. Let's see here. Let's take a look. I could like to look at kind of the lower down results on this because it gives an interesting kind of sense of what, you know, the most popular one is Trump. So of course that's going to give a whole bunch of different things that Trump said. But this is also a different, this is an interesting way to look at it. And you'll notice that this is about Chicago and the murder problem in Chicago, because there's a problem with people getting killed in Chicago right now. Trump tweet hits high murder rate in Chicago. Now that is just a weird headline. I guess Trump was tweeting about the high murder rate in Chicago, but that's just a weird way to say it, Newsday, I think. Anyways, so I guess it's kind of a combination between the murders in Chicago and Obama's farewell address is going to be in Chicago. So that's why Chicago is in the nouns race. And then I like to take a look at the verbs. So I click over to the verbs in each of the categories and kind of compare them over the last few days to see what's changed, what's new. Is there an interesting verb? And it doesn't really seem like there's very much interesting going on in the verbs. In fact, the verbs tend to be kind of boring. I've noticed it's usually like killed or died or says. But they don't tend to be very exciting. The aggregated content, lumping together all the verbs and getting the most common ones gives you kind of nothing. Let's look at the pronouns. Now, the pronouns tend to, the top 10 usually tends to only include male pronouns. This has been a little different because we've had some females dying lately. And then Mariah Carey, of course, coming out and doing a horrible song. So Carrie Fisher died and her Debbie Reynolds died. And so there's been a bunch of hers and she's in the pronoun analysis. And Mariah Carey being the new newsworthy thing about females. She's bringing the her into the pronouns top 10. Thank you, Mariah Carey, for that. The numbers is kind of interesting. Sometimes you can pick out a top news story just by the number. And so we'll see that number 60 is right here. And that is because if we look at it, it's the 60s, the 60 dead in Brazil in the prison riots. So that's another way to find out about that. And that's kind of interesting. I think the Kansas City Star is a little late with their news about Carrie Fisher has died, but I guess better late than never. Okay, so now let's look at the adjectives and the adverbs. And the adjectives and the adverbs tend to be kind of interesting. You'll get a good descriptive word every once in a while that just kind of sticks out. Today I see nightclub as being the distinctive word. And the reason is because of the nightclub attack in Turkey over New Year's Eve. Let's take a look at the adverbs here real quick, and then well, it doesn't look like there's much going on the adverbs. Like the verbs, when you lump together all the adverbs, you don't get that much interesting stuff, as you can see. It seems like people or news headline writers don't really create really interesting adverbial content or verbial content. They're looking more for the nouns and the adjectives to describe those nouns rather than the verbs, which I guess is, I don't know, it's just interesting. As the headline analysis tool or HAT continues to be developed and continues to gather headlines, I'm sure I will be able to create more of an analysis about what that means exactly. At this point, you're welcome to browse the site and create your own conclusions. One thing I like about the headline analysis tool that I created it, so this is what I like about it. If you go to a news source, you can learn more about it on Wikipedia right here easily. And it also gives the same n-gram analysis and lexicological analysis for that individual news source. And it also gives the most recent headlines from Al Jazeera down here at the bottom of the page. So if you were a big fan of Al Jazeera, you could come here and get your headlines without the pictures, which may or may not be useful to you. Let's just take a look at this quickly. Video, why is that the most common, I guess? It's Myanmar detaining policemen over, they were detaining policemen over a video of them abusing, torturing people in a village, Muslim people, the Muslim, oh God, I'm going to pronounce this horribly, Rohingya minority community. You can see it right there. You can probably not pronounce it better than I can. But this is what they're talking about on Al Jazeera. Well, thank you very much for taking a look at this, and feel free to come and take a look at the tool at headlines.cascadiantech.com. If you have questions or comments, you could leave them in the video comment box below or email me at info@cascadiantech.com. I am looking for people who would be interested in doing more analysis or creating software to analyze this headline data that I'm collecting. So if you're one of those people, feel free to send me an email. Hope you're having a great day, and I'll be talking to you next time.